We begin with breaking news. We're getting reports that the government of Chancellor Olaf Scholz has reached agreement with the main opposition Conservatives on a date for early elections. Scholz fired his finance minister last week, leading to the collapse of his three-way coalition. Scholz originally wanted to hold a confidence vote next January, leading to a snap poll in March. But on Sunday, he said he'd be open to calling the confidence vote earlier, following demands to do so from the opposition. So when will Germans be going to the polls? DW politics correspondent Matthew Moore has more. Matthew, what are you hearing?
That's right, Terry. We're hearing that February 23rd looks like the most likely date that Germans will head to the polls. It's not confirmed completely because there are various loopholes and various things that need to be agreed on finally, but fundamentally that seems to be that there's an agreement between the opposition Christian Democrats and the parliamentary group of the Social Democrats, the centre-left party of Chancellor Olaf Scholz. And they seem to have agreed on this February 23rd date before we can categorically say that that will be the day that Germans head to the polls. First of all, Chancellor Olaf Scholz has to say that he's happy to do that. And then, as you mentioned there, the final decision is actually in the hands of the President, Frank-Walter Steinmeier. It will be up to him to call basically new elections. But it looks like we have an agreement within the groups in the Parliament of when they can kind of sit down and agree on that date, and that would be February 23rd. But as I say, it's not 100% confirmed.
OK, so we've got a rough date for the election, or a concrete date if everyone actually agrees on that and the President says yes. But first, there has to be a vote of confidence in Parliament. When will Olaf Scholz call that? Do we know? That's
right, Terry. So basically last week, Chancellor Olaf Scholz said he wanted to call that vote of confidence in January 15. A lot of opposition groups and parties and people in business and so on said, hey, we need that to be much sooner. We want that fresh elections because we need stability. We want those fresh elections to happen sooner. And that confidence vote is tied to it because the Chancellor can decide when that confidence vote takes place. And that then triggers the new elections. And so he said he wanted it January 15. It now looks like that will happen earlier in December. But as I say, that's not been confirmed. But fundamentally, it looks like there's an agreement that that will take place in December. And that would then lead to an election day of, as we say, February 23rd. And so it looks like the opposition party have managed to get the governing Social Democrats to move their date forward a bit, but not snap elections, so not a calling of confidence vote this week, which is what the opposition leader wanted. So again, as is always and so often the case in German politics, there seems to have been a compromise, but we cannot say categorically that it is February 23rd.
Now, following the regular election calendar, Germany would have had a federal election in September anyway. That's being brought forward, as you've mentioned. Give us some background on the collapse of Scholz's government that led to this. Right.
So the current, or rather, the recently deceased coalition government was a coalition government of the Social Democrats, the Greens, and the Free Democrats, a kind of pro-business party. They sought agreement just before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. They got together and said, we're going to have this big plan to modernise Germany. Then the war happened. They agreed on a lot, it must be said, in that first year in 2022. But then I would say in the last months and in the last year, there's been so much arguing and public briefing against each other that basically things collapsed last week. The Chancellor said that his finance minister from the pro-business Free Democrats, he could no longer trust him. And that has now triggered this crisis in German politics where we will have elections not next September as was scheduled, but in the first quarter of next year. And as we now know today, it's looking very likely that the date for elections will be February.
OK, Matthew, I'm sure you're going to be tracking this story for us the rest of the day. Thanks so much for now. Our political correspondent, Matthew Moore. Thank you very much.